Welcome to this Pastel My Business online webinar. This webinar will show you how to create recurring invoices which can be automatically emailed to customers. We will cover the parameters that determine the cycle start and end dates, the frequency, and whether the invoice should be generated automatically by the system or as a draft.
Now, you may ask, why the recurring invoices? Now, recurring invoices is a very powerful tool where you would need to set it up on the Pastel itself so that Pastel would automatically or in draft mode generate invoices on your behalf. Why would you do that? Now, say you've got a customer that's ordering the same goods from you each day, each week, twice a month, every month, or even once a year, depending on the frequency they order. You can automatically generate an invoice for this user without having to go through the tedious option of going to select that customer each and every month or every day and so forth, and selecting all their stock items because they're ordering the same goods all the time. So it's something that's very beneficial if you're in professional services, like property rental, for instance. If you're in property rental and you need to send out rent advices to all your customers. Now, we know that rent is not changing. It's going to be a fixed amount for the next year at least. So you can set up recurring invoices so that each and every month, by the 2nd of each month or the 1st of each month, Pastel automatically generates the exact same duplicate invoice for all your customers once off, and it's done for you either automatically or in drafts. So it's a very useful utility that you can use, as I said, specifically if you're in that kind of industry, or if you're in any other kind of industry, as long as you've got a customer ordering the same goods from you. Now, Pastel allows you to be efficient in two ways by doing this. Firstly, there is an option under the Pastel on Pastel invoicing on the invoicing side where you can say, for this customer, I want to use the last invoice details. Just to quickly show you that screen, if you go to your customers menu and go to your tax invoice option. Now on the tax invoice, let's add an arbitrary tax invoice here, just for practice purposes. Okay, great. While I'm just waiting for that screen to update. Alright, it has updated on my side. I see it's still delaying to update on yours. Okay, slowly but surely, there it is. Now I choose a customer. Let's use this customer. As soon as I choose this customer, I get this option available where my mouse is right now. Use last invoice details. So it's very convenient so that the last invoice information for this specific customer, if I click on that option, it will automatically bring through all the items and the prices and so forth that was on the invoice specific to this customer. So it's just to make you more productive, more efficient, less room for human error in terms of entering the incorrect selling prices, the incorrect quantities and so on. So you can simply click on that option, it's Pastel's going to run, and there it is. Now these would be the details that I had for this specific customer. So this is what I invoiced out this customer last time around. Now to take this one step further, we've created recurring invoices where you don't even need to go into process customer invoice screen. All you need to do is you just need to set up your recurring invoices, and then Pastel runs. Depending on how you want to run it, Pastel can automatically create the invoices for you, or it can create the invoices but put them into drafts. And if it puts them into drafts, then at that stage you can go into your drafts, view all your draft invoices, and if you want to do some changes, maybe add additional information, then you can do so. But if you're happy with all your drafts and you've overseen them, quick perusal of the drafts, then you can click on process, and then all those invoices are updated. Now you need to be informed that the recurring invoices would be a, let me call it a fixed cost or fixed detail, unless you run them in drafts. Now if you're running them in drafts, you can still go back and do the necessary changes. But if you're running them in automatic sequence, then that invoice will be done automatically, it will be fixed, so you will not be able to go back and change it. unless you credit that customer and redo the invoice with the correct invoice, with the correct details of what the customer actually wanted. So it's just for your information to know that your recurring invoices that run automatically are fixed descriptions, fixed costs, and fixed details, which you will not be able to change. But for drafts, you're more than welcome to go in there into the drafts and do the changes. Now, there's two ways to access your recurring invoices. Either by going into your customers menu and going to your recurring invoice option, which is what I've got currently highlighted there. Alternatively, you can go to your customer tax invoice button or option, and there's a button there that says add recurring invoice. So it's just there for your availability, make it easy for you to find. So I'm going to click on add recurring invoice button here, so that I can now take you through steps of setting up your recurring invoices. Now it brings us to an awesome screen that comes up. As you can see, it's not too cluttered, not too much information that needs to go into this, because the setup should be quite linear, should be quite simple. As you can see, everything is on a single line in terms of the actual setup, and then you can enter all your line information there. Now, the first thing you would need to do is you need to process a recurring invoice per customer. So it is unfortunate at the moment that if you've got 10 customers you would need, and you're processing the same stock or same items for all 10 of them, you would need to set them up individually for all 10. But at least it takes out that additional work for you the following month or the following week when the recurring invoices start to run automatically. So the initial setup could be a bit of the more tedious processing time that you need to spend. So I'm going to choose any one of my customers. Let's look at Joe Soap. I select Joe Soap as a customer. Now the convenience, the additional convenience that we've added on recurring invoices is the menu pop-ups that have come up. Now, as you can see, I'm moving my mouse over each box, and when I move my mouse over each box, it gives you nice details, just a brief synopsis as to what goes into that field. So it's just there for your use, just quick reference so that you know what sort of information is required of you. Firstly, you are required to specify a recurring invoice number. If you haven't specified it yourself, Pastel will automatically generate one based on the last one that was used, meaning that your recurring invoice numbers will always increment from the last one that was used. So if you leave it as is, it will automatically increment. Alternatively, you can enter your own number sequencing, and Pastel will increment from that number sequencing going forward. The next option is the reference on the right hand side. Now if you click on the reference, here you would specify a reference. Now this could be an internal reference for an internal number sequencing. So you want to have a recurring invoice number and you want to have an internal number referencing just for internal use. So here you would specify a reference. You can also use this reference as a contact person that agreed on having this recurring invoice being done with you. So you specify the reference number in that field, and then on that line we've got the discounts percent. Now that discount percent stipulates the entire invoice discount. So whatever amounts that you enter in there will be a percentage of the entire invoice. And the last option, make sure that your recurring invoice is active, because if it's inactive, then it's not going to run. So you need to make sure that it is active and it is running on each and every month. Then we get to the actual setup of the recurring invoice. Now, recurring invoices run at midnight. So if I set up recurring invoices right now with you, as I'm going through the process with you, they will run automatically depending on how I set up my frequency, but they will start running or be in effect at 12 midnight tonight or tomorrow morning. Semantics, but yeah, it will start running at midnight tonight. So you need to, that's why, as you can see there, it has already specified tomorrow's date for me. Since today is the 9th, automatically it has specified that it needs to run from the 10th. So the start date will be at midnight tonight. Then we have the frequency. Now the frequency stipulates how often do you want Pastel to run these recurring invoices. Do you want them to run daily, weekly? As you can see all the options there. You can even run it once a year. So it's really up to you, the agreement that you have with your customer, how frequently they will be ordering from you. You can just set it up for the frequency that you require. The next option would be the end date. Now, as you can see, the message comes up. If you leave the end date, then these recurring invoices will run endlessly. So they will run continuously without an expiry, without an end date. But if you specify an end date here, you can say I'm specifying an end date up until the end of the year. And then we'll relook at our arrangements in the following year, so you can set up your recurring invoices to run up until the 31st of December. So the last invoice will be run on the 31st of December, depending on the end dates that you've specified there. The next option, moving right along, is the payment date. Bear in mind that these are recurring invoices, and with each recurring invoice, it needs to carry with it an expected payment due date. Here you would specify that. It's the number of days from whatever the options are, as I'll take you through now. So you specify the number of days. I can say 7 days. I can specify that I want the payment date to be 7 days from the date of the invoice. So if the invoice is run on the 1st of December, payments needs to be due by the 8th of December, basically. And all this information will be automatically populated on the recurring invoice that will be sent out to the customer, which is very cool, saves you a lot of time, and it's just convenient. Now the payments, the due dates for the payments here, the options that you have is it can firstly be on the date of the invoice, from the day of the current month, number of days of the following month, or the number of days at the end of the current month. So here you would specify the number of days based on those periods, if you can call it that. The next option that we have is a signature. Now, if you're going to be emailing your invoices, bear in mind that though these invoices are automatically generated by the application, they are still meeting SARS requirements, which means they are encrypted, so they cannot be edited by anyone, and they are secured. And you need to then get the whole written consent from your customer that they have allowed written consent to receive electronic documents. Now, I have covered that previously, so I'm not going to go into detail with that. But basically, the emailing options of your document is a prerequisite for SARS. So we've put in that email signature here so that if you're emailing your recurring invoices, it pulls through your signature, whatever you want to specify in the signature, automatically onto the body of the email and fires the email to the customer. And the last option we have is to create invoice. This would be the method of your recurring invoice. Now, I previously said that recurring invoices run in two methods. The first method would be they run automatically. So running it automatically means that whenever the invoice runs, it will run automatically, so the stock will be adjusted, the customer's account will be affected, your VAT will be affected, everything will be affected if it's running automatically. And the customer then owes you X amount based on the invoice. But you also have an option to run in drafts. Now, running in drafts as a draft is there to give you more of a control if you're a control freak like myself. So you'd run it as a draft so that you can go back, have a look at your drafts. If you're happy with your drafts, then you can go ahead and process your drafts. Now, I'll take you to the drafts now just so that you can see what it looks like. I'll leave it as a draft for the sake of this session. Then I come to the details. Now, this is just the detail of the invoice, exactly what this customer orders from us each and every month. Let's say he's ordering a one-time ticket and some Nike running shoes from us. And he's also getting a sports instructor as well. Now, this is what Joseph is ordering from us. This is a standard order. It's going to run monthly. Well, in this case, it's going to run daily. As you can see on my setup, the frequency is daily, and it will be expiring endlessly. That's why the end date is not there. but Joe needs to pay my invoices within 7 days from the time that the invoice is generated. Now, I'm happy with the invoice. You've got a message block at the bottom where you can specify a message. Thank you for your patronage or your support, or you can, most importantly, enter your banking details there. It's always good to give the client as much information as possible, especially when it comes to banking details. So on that message block, you enter any additional information that you'd like to share with your customers. Once you're happy with the recurring invoice, you've got the two save options at the bottom: save to exit this window, or save and new to process a new or create a new recurring invoice. And for the sake of the session, I'm just going to click on the save button. Now we're going to watch it run while it's saving that recurring invoice. Now the recurring invoice is saved. Just waiting for your screen to update. Perfect, it's updated. Now it brings me to a list of all the recurring invoices. Okay, wrong screen. I'm actually on the customer tax invoice screen. I'm going to go to recurring invoices. Okay, so we can just see a list of all the recurring invoices. There we go. These are all the recurring invoices that I currently have. There's Joe Soap. We've created that customer recurring invoice. I can go in here, edit this recurring invoice. I can delete the recurring invoice. It gives you details of the recurring invoice in terms of the recurring invoice number, the date that it's going to start running. As you can see right now, it says it hasn't run as yet. As I said previously, that it will run at midnight tonight. So the run will be at midnight. That's the total for the invoice. That is the frequency. Joe Soap is going to get the same invoice each and every single day. There is no end date, so it's going to be ongoing endlessly. And the method is in drafts. So all of Joe Soap's invoices will be saved in drafts. Quite nice. Information is there for you. You can then proceed to the next step. And what we've also added here is a search function where you can search for recurring invoice numbers if you've got those invoice numbers, or by any other filter. You can just choose on the filter options there. So it shows you a nice list of all your recurring invoices. Your invoices are done. Now, as I said to you before, is when Pastel runs the recurring invoices in the two methods, either it runs them automatically or it runs them in a draft. As I said, it automatically updates your stock, your tax, your customer, and so forth. So all of that stuff is automatically updated. However, if you're running them in drafts, you've got that draft invoicing option there. If you click on the View Draft Invoices, this shows me a nice list of all my draft invoices that are currently sitting in a draft for all my customers. Now at this point, I can go through each and every invoice. As I said, I can edit it, I can delete it, I can choose to leave this invoice out by simply unchecking the ones that I want to leave out for now, and check the ones or tick the ones that I want to have there. It will show you the details, the customer's details, recurring invoice number, the date, the amount, and the payment's due date, which is quite cool for quick reference purposes. And on the right-hand side, it will give you a message that the tax invoice has not been emailed. Now, once I'm happy with the invoices, the recurring invoice drafts that I have here, I can either click on Process and Email. Then it will email automatically to those 3 customers. It will email those invoices to them with an auto-signature if I've set up an auto-signature. Alternatively, it will process the tax invoice. So it will just update the customer's account, and the invoices will be sitting in the customer's account. The stock will be affected and so forth. And there'll be no printing, no emailing at that stage. So if I'm choosing the second option. So for the sake of this session, I'm going to click on Process and Email. As I said earlier, is that when you're emailing, it will bring up your email signature options, and you should automatically see an email signature in there. Whatever the email signature reads, you're happy with the signature, you don't want to add any additional information, you click on OK, and Pastel does the rest. And Pastel simply is going to email those invoices out to those customers. As you can see, those 3 have been taken off the list. And when I do my next batch, I can choose to select the ones I want or unselect the ones I do not want, and then proceed with the exact same process. Now that, in a nutshell, summons up our drafts, our recurring invoices. But most importantly, what is also convenient that we've also put into the application is that Pastel also gives you a nice warning. I'm on the home page right now, gives you a nice warning in blue, highlighted in blue, that you've got invoices, recurring invoices in drafts. So whenever you log into a company, the first thing you see is you look at how your company's been performing in terms of the dashboard that you see, and just above the dashboard, you've got there we go. You've got recurring invoices, new tax invoices, and or draft invoices have been created for recurring invoice runs since your last login. You can view a list by simply clicking here. It's just there for your convenience, make you more productive, saving more time, and hopefully saving you a lot more money. So draft invoices, you can access them from the dashboard, or you can access them from the recurring invoice view draft invoices menu.
Thank you for joining us for this My Business Online webinar. If you found it useful, please visit the Pastel website to find out about future My Business Online webinars or training courses. Alternatively, contact us on sales@pastelmybusiness.co.za.